Good morning or good afternoon, depending when you're watching. Welcome to the broadcast. I'm going to wait a couple of seconds till people join in. If you're watching the replay, thank you. And I'll get to you in a moment. My name is Barry Selby, one of the teachers in the Rainbow Heart Classroom. And my area of expertise is the area of relationship and romance. So I'll be getting to that in a moment. We're just welcoming a few people into the room. I believe some people are joining this broadcast, and if you are live, please make a note, comment, say something, tap the screen, different. Click on the hearts and like stuff, that'd be appreciated as well. And if you're watching the replay, by the way, you can ask questions and I will be checking back in afterwards to answer any questions you have. Okay? So I'm just checking something on the computer because I'm doing a simultaneous thing here. All right, yes, there it is. Okay, so thanks for joining me. And I'll get into the story in a moment about who I am, where I'm from. First of all, thank you, a deep bow of reverence and appreciation to Mia for hosting this and for putting this together. She and I have been friends for a long time, and to be invited to be part of this teaching for the 4th year is quite something. So I'm very deeply humbled and grateful to be part of this. Also, hats off to those other people who are speaking, other teachers who are speaking yesterday, today, and the next 2 weeks basically. So twice a day there's going to be amazing speakers and teachers present to watch this. So I invite you to check in at 9 a.m. Pacific time and 11 a.m. Pacific time to watch whoever's going to be joining and speaking. It'll be good stuff. So my name is Barry Selby, as I mentioned. I am known as the Love Doctor to my friends and clients. I am a relationship and transformation expert. Actually, I'm a relationship attraction expert. So, hi Lorraine. And this is the thing I love about this is the interactivity. So if you are watching this, whether you're watching it on your phone or your computer, you can type in comments, you can tap the screen or the like, and put in hearts and tap the screen multiple times if you wish to. That's something you can do as well. Hi Jess, thanks for being here as well. It's interesting because I'm doing this on my phone, and because it's sideways, when I look at the screen, I look like I'm looking off screen to the viewer, but I'm actually looking at the screen, and then looking at the camera, I'd look off my screen to see you. So backwards. Anyway. I'm a #1 best-selling author. This is my book, 50 Ways to Love Your Lover, and I'm offering this as a free ebook download for those of you who want to get that. See, my picture's on the back, so it's really my book. I may refer to this book later on, so I'm keeping it open for a chapter I want to read. But before I get there, I want to speak to you about my own journey to give you a sense of why I do what I do. And I want to start with a couple of things. One is my own dysfunctional relationship history. And I'm the only one who's ever had one of those, I'm sure. You never had a problem with your past relationships. Let's just say I had more than a few. And at the beginning of my dating adventures, in my teens and then early 20s, I was falling into a trap that I would say that everybody falls into until you know differently. And I'll explain what that trap is in a moment, but let me illustrate by what happened. In my early explorations, in probably, I think my first real dates were probably in my mid-late teens, and they were clunky at best. But truly, wasn't pretty. As most people may have been at that age, I was very inept, clumsy, and didn't know how to lead, do any of that stuff. But one particular thing showed up in my early dating experience that you may be able to relate to. I would get into this passionate, exciting, romantic, well, for an English reserved person, that's not bad, romance with a girl in my teens and a woman in my 20s. And each time, maybe only a month into the relationship, perhaps even 3 months if I was lucky, we'd break up. And the reason we broke up is because she and I would have a discord, an upset, an argument, something like that. And I couldn't handle it. Now, the 2020 hindsight part of this is a look back at my parents being raised in England in a very reserved Jewish Stoic family. And my parents, as far as I recall, never argued in front of the kids. And I believed through the upbringing I had, and again from my memory, not from necessarily what happened, but my experience with my parents, was that I was under the impression that when you're loving with somebody, you never argue. Therefore, logically speaking, in math, if you argue, there can't be love. And so it's an either-or situation, black and white for me. So for several men, well, at least half a dozen different relationships I had, they would start with love and end in an argument every time. I didn't know differently that that was a mistake in approach. In fact, I didn't know about makeup sex. I didn't know about any of this stuff. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because I've learned since then that we, us human beings, men and women, are programmed subconsciously, or I should say we take in our beliefs about relationships subconsciously as our own programming. We're not programmed manually, we just take it in this way. When we're young kids, usually up to the age of 7 years old, when our subconscious mind is absolutely soaking up the world around us, is how life is. Before our conscious mind starts making decisions and becomes the gatekeeper for our choices, subconscious mind is going, that's how it works, basically. The way that money works, that love works, that relationship works, that religion works. We watch the world around us, particularly the big grown-ups around us with big people, we think know what they're doing. So if you were raised, for example, in an abusive household, so hi Mia, good to have you here. I give you props at the beginning of this for hosting this wonderful event. I may do it at the end as well. But you may be raised in a very abusive environment, perhaps, either emotionally, mentally, physically, sexually abusive, that you may not have liked. However, your subconscious mind has tied that together with love, meaning that subconsciously in your adult life, and some of you may get light bulb moments on this, that you had the experience of getting into a relationship with somebody you thought was wonderful and perfect, and 3 months, 6 months, 2 weeks into the relationship, you started to experience some form of abuse that mirrored what happened when you were a kid. And part of you, hi Kirsten, nice to have you here, part of you would think that would be okay, because your programming was that love and abuse went together. Now, I'm not saying this is what everybody went through, but some of my clients have been through this experience where they didn't realize that their subconscious patterns from childhood were still controlling their adult dating life in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. Time to change. Now, another illustration of this is, and this was one that was an extremely traumatic news item in the news. This is going back probably 10, 15 years ago, but these weren't unusual back then, unfortunately. There was a news report of a domestic violence situation that the police were called to in the Deep South. They came to the house, and when they got out the police car, the police officers got out the police car, they heard this loud yelling and banging and crashing in the house. Went at the front door, knocked on the door, there wasn't any answer, but the door was unlocked. They went inside. About 30 seconds later, they come to the door with this big, brusque man struggling between them. You know, wife beater t-shirt, red in the face, furious-looking man. Big guy. And 2 police officers working the hardest to drag him outside the house and down the garden path to the police car. About halfway down the garden path, about 25, 30 seconds later, the wife staggers to the door, black eye, bleeding lip, beaten up, disheveled, looking really distressed, tears pouring down her face, with a kitchen knife in her hand. She comes running out of the house, pursuing the police with her husband, raises the knife and stabs one of the cops. Yes, one of the cops. After the paramedics were there and they calmed her down and everything got sorted out, they patched up the cop. They asked her what drove her to that. What was she thinking? And when she was finally coherent after getting some serious medication, she said in those uncertain terms that she felt that the police were removing her only source of love. She had literally tied together abuse with love as the only way it could be expressed for her. Now, come to find out in her history that she was raised in a very abusive background, upbringing family, a lot of alcohol, a lot of drunkenness and hurt. And so she associated that with loving in her upbringing, subconsciously, not intentionally, of course not. We don't think we'll do that intentionally, but we subconsciously choose it because as an adult, we want to find the love we had when we were a kid. So, now I told you this sad story, as it were, but we all have those options. And if you're raised in a very wonderful family, you may have a standard for love that is so high you don't know how to get into a relationship. That was one of my challenges on the other side of the coin, because it was always so perfect in my upbringing, at least the beliefs I had. So how to resolve this? The way that I work with my clients, and so you know, do for yourself, is first of all, become aware. The hardest thing for most of us is to look back at our history and go, where did I cause that to happen? Because in relationships, a lot of times we feel like we're the victim when we lose, men and women. And the reality is that we're in full control every step of the way. Yes, you're in full control every step of the way. So, your opportunity, your invitation is to look back at your past relationships If you're in a place where you're single now, or if you're in a place where you're not getting what you want, look back at your past relationships and see the common threads. Look at the things that happened that were, different face, different person, but the same behavior, same arguments, the same conversations, the same things that didn't work for you, and then follow them back. I can pretty much guarantee, because most people have this experience, if you follow it back far enough, you'll remember something your parents did to you or in front of you that you recall as being the law that was laid down. And by doing that, by being aware of it, you can start to undo it and disconnect it. Now, I help my clients do that in a more accelerated process by really reparenting themselves and also having a chance to heal the memories. But if you do that alone, that'll put you in the right direction. So that's one of the things we'll talk about. Oh, but also about my own history. Why I do what I do. In my bio it says, and I think it says in the bio it's in this group, I'm a passionate champion for the divine feminine. And that passion was awoken in 2007, 2008 when I was studying with some really powerful teachers who teach in the masculine feminine paradigm. And up to that point I didn't know what that was. And in my dating life before that, I was dating very strong, successful women, and I was the nice beta guy who would just be compliant to what they wanted and didn't have any understanding that I needed to take leadership. Because if I took leadership, if I stepped up, if I was the man in the relationship, somehow my logic was I would hurt their feelings. I was so off base. So to rewind back to when I was a teenager, I wasn't the hunk at school. I wasn't the player, the jock, the go-to boy that the girls loved. In fact, I was bullied in most of my teen years, and it put me in a very somewhat reserved and held back place, even for English standards. And so I didn't participate much. But what happened is the women would seek me out, the girls would seek me out, and this is like 15, 16, 17, as the boy they could trust to cry on his shoulder. I was that nice guy. And I didn't mind wearing it. It was kind of a badge of honor somehow. I was feeling respected. Not by the boys, but by the girls. And that sort of laid the groundwork for the rest of my journey so far, in terms of most of my friends. I have more female friends than male friends. That's the way it's always been. Not as a bad thing. In fact, I like it a lot. But also, I didn't invade their space. I didn't know how to, frankly. I was so averse to being macho, because it's a whole other conversation, that I was so reserved and held back. So my dating life was very interesting. So fast forward till after 30 years of studying the personal growth industry, spiritual teachings, understanding masculine and feminine polarity, particularly the last 10 years, I really get to know now who I am and what I'm about. And now I learned, and I'll give you this piece for ladies who are looking in to see how men really can think, and for men watching this to please step up, because this is for men as well. I did not know at that time, back in years ago, that there was a difference between macho and masculine. I thought that you have to be a manly man was to be bullyish, to take charge and take ownership, and it was all my stuff, and screw you, I'm doing it for me, which is the macho ego format. If you can remember far enough back to watch replays of All in the Family with Archie Bunker and Edith Bunker, that was Archie Bunker. He was like, my way the highway, honey, and she would be totally willing to go with that because she was the meek housewife. That's an old paradigm of relationship. And for most of us, have still that programming within us that was the way men and women were supposed to be. Man was the breadwinner, woman stayed at home, which is so what the feminist movement, or the sexual revolution movement of the 60s, blew out of the water. Okay, I'm here, I'll go here too. I'm just realizing what I'm covering, so I'm just going to drop into certain teachings so you have information. Yes, I will, and I'll come back to that. I'm realizing how it's going. So, I'm just reordering in my mind what I'm saying. We, as human beings, are evolving, as you guess, especially in this classroom. This classroom is massively about evolution and growing. The relationship framework, the paradigm that we go through in the Western world about how we relate to each other in romantic relationship, is also evolving. And as I mentioned, in the old format, like when my parents' generation, your parents too probably, had this macho, meek housewife dance going on with the man with the breadwinner, because back in the 50s and before, most women weren't really working and being independent. Most women, in fact, married straight out of, moving out of the house. They were staying with their parents, then they got courted by the man, and the man basically got engaged, and they married her and moved in with him, or they moved in together. That was the model back then. Then in the 60s, the sexual revolution happened. The feminist movement, as it was called, and I have an issue with that titling. I don't believe it's a really fair title. I'll get to that in a moment, so bear with me. The feminist movement and the sexual revolution was the time when women were being, well, as in England it's called the Women's Liberation Movement, and women were being liberated from that limited way of living, that the cultural trap or the cultural limitation that women were under for many years. So in the 60s, women basically started to learn. First of all, it was I remember back in England watching the newspapers, and Twiggy was big in the 60s. Twiggy was a model in England, and she was flat-chested. She wore it was wide-shouldered, thick lapel jackets, cut her hair very short and spiky, and makeup was minimal. And that was kind of the model that was taught for women coming out of the sexual revolution. They were basically burning their bras, cutting their hair, putting on suits, going to work, acting like men. So the women basically competed with the men in the men's world. Let's just say in the era of relationships, it really made some confusion, because at the same time, in the 60s particularly, men were basically, that was in the United States, that was Vietnam War, Korean War, men were rebelling against it. There were the jarheads who were kind of the macho guys still, perpetuating that mindset. And there were the other men who were, what's what I'm looking for? Well, they were rebelling against it. They were protesting against the wars, and they were smoking weed, growing their hair long, getting flowery shirts, bell-bottom pants, and dropping out. So basically, roles were getting reversed. Women were more in the leadership, becoming breadwinners. They started getting their own cars, bank accounts, and apartments, started to get independent, and men lost their way. I'm not saying what caused it, but that's kind of what's happening in the 60s and into the early 70s. That's really where we sort of evolved out of the macho meek paradigm, the macho man and the meek housewife, or meek woman, into which, and by the way, sorry, rewind a second. That first stage was what we've seriously called codependent. The thing is, even though it was the macho man and meek housewife, Archie Bunker and Edith Bunker in that model of the All in the Family could not live without each other. It wasn't like she couldn't live without him, he couldn't live without her, he couldn't survive without her. So it was a very codependent, enmeshed relationship, and it wasn't very healthy. In fact, codependence isn't a very healthy model. I'll explain what's next after that. So stage 2, as it were, where women were getting independent and men were dropping out, there was this switching around of roles. And what happened was, because women got their independence, the idea of relationship became more negotiated, because it wasn't like the men coming to court the women. It was when men and women were on equal footing in a lot of ways. Women had independence. They could drive themselves. They had their own place to live, their own bank accounts. So relationships and romance were more negotiated back then. Kind of the independent stage, because you didn't need each other. In fact, it was kind of like, what's it worth to me to date you sort of thing, was kind of what came out of that. And that was really over the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s in the last century. It's funny saying the last century. It was only 10 years ago, 12, 15 years ago, but it seems so strange to say it. Forget my sidebars, I just go off on my own tangents. So that's what a lot of us went through, and that was my experience in dating. Particularly, I remember vividly being the place where, in some cases, the women I was going out with were earning more than I was, had nicer cars than I did, and I felt somewhat emasculated. I didn't know how to fix that, but I ended up playing that role for a while. So my past relationship will probably say, if I talk to them about this now, how out of alignment I was, how meek and how beta male I was, which is what was happening. A lot of men were doing that during the 80s and 90s. Now, the good news is we're not stopping there, thankfully. And for me, the wake-up call was during the work I was doing with, at the time in 2007, was Warrior Sage out of Vancouver, which is Satyen and Suzanne Raja, who I love dearly, dear friends of mine now, who taught me this first. That led me to David Data's work. And then from there I went into Alison Armstrong's work. So I've got a blend of teachings that really speak to the male, female, masculine, feminine model that we can embody and express and own very powerfully. There was a thing that was coming through there, and it will come back. Okay, so to go to stage 3, so we talked about stage 1, which is codependent, stage 2, which is independent. Stage 3 is where we're moving into. It's happening more and more, thankfully. In David Data's vernacular, he calls it the warrior and the goddess, and same with Warrior Sage. Alison Armstrong talks about it as either the hero and the queen or the king and the queen. What I would describe it as is where we've evolved beyond the independent stage, where men and women are starting to see that they live their own lives independently. But secondly, we're starting to see where the uniqueness that we each bring to each other makes for a much healthier relationship as an additive process versus filling some sort of gap or space we think we have. Because some of us think that still. Do you? Rewind the thinking. Back to the point is that for men, okay, this is the things I want to speak to. Men in your masculine, the way you can tell if you're in your masculine versus your macho perspective is when you're in your masculine heart, you're driven by a mission and purpose that's bigger than who you are, that will impact the world in a positive way, and that will leave, ideally, some sort of legacy behind you. It could be your family, but for most of us, it's something out in the world. My work in coaching and helping women, and I'll get to what my true mission is in a moment, is really what is my legacy. That's what drives me. And it really inspires my heart and is filling me up so that, in fact, I don't need relationship. You know? Oh, Ginny, you do? Yes, I love that work. I've been studying with them. Well, I studied with them 2007 to 2011, and it was amazing. Love their work. So thank you. I'm glad you do too. Get back on track. This is the challenge. We're watching comments and then trying to speak because I go, what was that? And then I lose track. Rewind it back into masculine. Yes. So the way I describe difference between, thank you, Janita. Is it Juanita or Janita? I want to sure pronounce your name properly. We men in our masculine are about heart-based focus on the world versus macho men who are more based on mind, strength, selfish rather, with small s. When we are in a masculine, we are a much bigger place to play. We also see other men more as brothers than competitors, and we also see women as divine feminine leaders who we honor and respect, ideally. Some men haven't got there yet. So on the feminine side, women went from the meek housewife energy, the supplicant or limited perspective and very weak energy, into the fierce independence, striking the blow because they were feminists. They're really masculine women trying to be feminine. It was kind of messed up, to be honest. We went from there into the third stage, which we're moving into, which I would say half of it is the goddess movement. I love the goddess energy. It's amazing. It's wonderful, but it's limited because for a lot of women, getting access to the goddess is for them to soften and open up to a much more flow and graceful way of being, which is wonderful. However, there's more to it than that, and I'm still percolating what the labeling is, but it's something on the lines of queen or priestess, or even warrior queen, because it's about the power of the feminine that is much more potent and impactful in a positive way than just a flowy movement of veils and dance and stuff like that. So when women are owning their power in this way, because ladies, when you're in your power, you're more powerful than any man. You need to know this because it's vital for the world's health that you know this. This is why I do the work, and I'm sort of getting to that point. So where are we time? Let's make sure yes, I've got time. In the third stage, ladies, when you're in your feminine, you are the queen. You are in your strength, in your grace, in your heart. You'll get things done, but you love to have a man lead and take care of you, knowing you don't need to have that happen. You can take care of yourself. But it's that grace and that joy and that celebration of the unity that makes a powerful relationship. This third stage is, and this is using, by the way, I'm using Warrior Sage's terms, is from codependence to independence into interdependence. Because interdependence implies that we're not requiring each other, we're not totally independent, but we're additive to each other, that we can express ourselves and enjoy the benefits, because relationships are not, as I say in my book, 50-50. We are 100% whole. You're 100% whole. And if you're feeling you're not, get some help. Because you are 100% whole. And so you and I, in relationship, are 100%, 100%. That means it's not 50-50, it's 100-100, which is 200% of the energy. That's a healthy relationship. And that's the additive part that I talk about. So speaking to where I'm getting to, because I want to make sure I cover this part too, in this journey of the last 10 years of being deeply immersed in the masculine and feminine conversation and the polarity and teaching this, I've been mostly helping women attract amazing relationships, and I loved helping strong, successful women learn to soften their heart, heal their heart, and attract amazing love and relationship. Yes, indeed we are 100% whole. At the same time, I'm discovering more and more how I'm feeling called to help strong, successful women find balance in their lives outside relationship, and truly to become feminine powerhouses on the planet. And the way I mean that is, we've had a good run of it. The men have had a good run of it running the world. Strength and surrender is this energy. Yes, Alison, that's a good way of putting it. Rewind that thought. We've had a good run at this house, this world. As a patriarchal society, as the macho patriarchal society, men have really done a number on this planet. Good things, a lot of bad stuff. It's time for the feminine matriarchal energy to really show up big time. So I'm really feeling more and more that my work in speaking, particularly, and leading, is to serve the feminine. I will help more men to do this as they want to, but really women are listening more, which is why I'm speaking to you ladies out there particularly, because you seem to be getting this, and I love speaking to this receptivity, because when you get this, my legacy expands. My service to assist you in becoming more powerful, more inspiring, and more able to step into leadership in the world from a feminine heart. It just fills me. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Reference my book one more time, because I'm realizing I want to make sure I have enough time, because I want to do this in like 30 minutes is a fair amount of time. I have a best-selling book, 50 Ways to Love Your Lover. It is basically 50 principles for healthy relationships, for single or in a relationship, male or female, gay or straight even. This book will help you. And to make sure you have a chance to read it, in the promotion earlier today that Mia put up, there's a link to download the book from our website as an ebook. So you can get it right now. If you want the physical version, you can go get it from my site as well. But you have to pay for that, sorry. I don't ship it for free. But the ebook is available as my gift to you. And I hope that it touches you, inspires you. And if you're looking for support in this area, you're in the right place, because the Rainbow Heart Classroom is an amazing place for resource, for support, and for networking. And I know I'm one of the few, I don't know how many brave men are in this group, I think it's a few of us, but we're here to serve you ladies. And feel free to reach out to me. And again, if you're watching this in the replay, if you want to add any comments below, I will come back and look at them afterwards and respond to your comments in the comments as well. So, I think that's it. Well, by the way, I'll just stop right there. Any questions you have, by the way? I've been ranting and talking for 25 to 30 minutes. If you have any questions, please type them in the comments now and I can answer them. So I'm realizing I've been just teaching and teaching, which is kind of what we're doing here. But I want to make sure if there's any burning questions or top of mind thoughts you have right now that you would like answered, please type in the comments. And I'm padding because it takes about 30 seconds for you to type for me to get the question on my side of the screen. And I'll answer any questions you have. And by the way, I'll say this again because I said it at the beginning, deep down thanks to Mia for being the host of this, for being the creator of the Rainbow Heart Classroom, and for having me back again on, this is the 4th year for the Rainbow Heart Classroom Love Revolution. So I'm very humbled and grateful to be here. So thank you, Mia, for that. I appreciate it. And I don't take it for granted at all. So thanks for having that. All right, I'm seeing any questions, but I don't see anything showing up yet. I'm not sure how fast they will come. Let me take sorry. I have my tea behind the counter, so I'm just going to sip of tea whilst I'm waiting. And yeah, if there's no more questions, I'll be signing off in a couple of minutes. Oh, thank you, Jess. I'm glad you liked. This was a joy to do this. And as I said I sent an email to my email list last night, late unfortunately, because I couldn't get my email server for a while. I said that Mia threw the gauntlet down by challenging us to go live versus doing like an interview. Because the other part also is, not only is it live, so there's no rehearsal, there's no planning ahead, it's also more exposure because I'm in front of as many people watching it live as there are, and there's 4 or 5 people watching live now, which is a little bit of a stretch. And the third part is that there's no interview. Mia's not sitting down and talking to each of us to probe and ask questions and invite responses. So this has to be content rich for you, otherwise why would you bother watching? So it puts me on the spot to really generate. And I had my book open to a couple of chapters I was going to go to, but I just felt this need to express to you basically so you know who I am and where I come from, and to hopefully illustrate for you some examples you can use in your own life. I'm here to serve, and I love being in this place of resource to support you ladies having what you want in love, in life, in business, in wealth. So that's about it. Thank you for watching. Yes. Thank you, Jess. No, my pleasure. This message is becoming stronger. This message, particularly about feminine leadership, started after the election. Interesting timing, in November. I've been doing a lot of Facebook Lives on my own page. I've got like 22 so far. They're called Messages from the Masculine, and it's really in the same vein as the last part of my talk here today. So if you want more of that, you can find them on my website, on my Facebook page, or you go to my website, which is my name, barryselby.com. I have a video blog, and I store them all there, so you can watch them in sequence if you want. So thank you for watching, and thanks for the comments, thanks for the love, thanks for the tapping of the screen for hearts and everything else. And again, if you're watching the replay and you have any questions, please put them below, and I'll come back and look later and answer them. And a reminder to you all, for the next 2 weeks, this is 9 a.m. Pacific time, you're welcome, 9 a.m. Pacific time and 11 a.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday, yesterday, because Mia kicked it off yesterday, all the way through to Friday next week, with a different speaker every day, 2 speakers every day. So this is my shot, my go today at 11 a.m. And thanks for watching. As you can watch, all the replays will be stored in the group. I'm not sure if they'll be removed at some point, but they'll be here. There was something else in the back of my mind. Questions, thoughts? It'll come back to me. I'm sure it will. Thank you for watching, and please do participate in this group fully. There's great hosts, help, collaborators, participants, and people sharing this group. So you're in a good place. I think the question was, it disappeared, so it's gone now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me. And again, if you have questions, reach out and direct message me if you want to over Facebook. I am responsive on Facebook in particular. It's my home base for social media. And if you want support, let me know. All right. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves. Oh, this is what I was going to say. I knew it was in the back of my mind. To sign off, since this is the Love Revolution number 4, my encouragement and homework to you is, from now on, is love yourself more today than you did yesterday. In whatever way, shape, or form you do that. Honor and appreciate who you are. Love yourself every day better than you did yesterday, because in 30 days, your life will be transformed. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.